Hey guys, Bulldog back at you here. So, welcome back to my YouTube channel. All right, so what I want to do is I got a PVC pole here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a lot of good moves you can use with the pole in order to work out those joints, especially those shoulders, those hips, knees, things like that. All right, so I've got real bad shoulders. Strength-wise, everything else is fine, but I've got torn labrums, torn rotator cuffs, things like that. But what you do is as long as they're not completely ruptured or severed or degenerated, what you do is you try to create space in them, okay? Especially for like the shoulders, all right? Because you got internal and external rotation, both horizontal and vertical, okay? So the way that you use this pole in order to do that is you use leverage, all right? So we take this here, right? This is generally how I start. So I usually start off in front of my body and I kind of get everything cranked up and warmed up. And as I'm doing that, I make my way over to the side here, okay? Once I get here, now I can take my leg, put that pole in there, and watch what happens. So I want to make sure I keep this at 90 degrees, okay? And elbow even with the shoulder. Now, as I go back and I kind of push forward on that leg, what happens is that shoulder is able to rotate further back, right? Now, once it gets loosened up, if I want to do a little bit extra, then I just use that pole, right? Keep it back and wiggle it in and out, okay? In that rotation. I will obviously want to do the same thing with the other shoulder. So a little bit quicker, gonna work that back and forth with the wiggle. We'll take the shoulder socket, move it back and forth. Okay, and then once we get it back there, now we want to make sure that, again, we're at 90 and then 90. Okay, so 90 degree at the elbow, 90 degree at the shoulder. And then we're going to start pushing forward and letting that pole help us out a little bit. We're going to get some more stretch. Now I'm already pretty loosened up for the day, but again, once we come over the side, we just kind of work it a little bit there. Okay. Now, shoulders are feeling good, kind of roll them out a little bit. Now, just like in an overhead squat, you should be able to put the pole, broomstick, whatever you got on top of your head, right? Elbows at 90 degrees and then extend up. All right, once you extend up, you should be able to go behind your head without moving your neck or head forward. If you have to do like this, then that means you've got really tight shoulders, okay? So one way that will help with that is to use a point of reference, okay? So like here, I've got this right here. I'm gonna lower down just a little bit, but I can press up against the wall, right? I've got the wall, and I can trace the wall going back and forth and up and down, okay? And that gives me a point of reference in order to keep those shoulders back, all right? Now another thing that I like to do is, so that's pretty good for the shoulders, right? Hips. Okay, so a couple different things we can do with hips. So typically what I like to do is I'm here just like this, and then I'm going to hip hinge, or kind of like Pac-Man. I'm going to let my body, I'm going to shoot my hips back, stretch out the hamstrings while I do it, and this pole is actually getting my chest up, okay? So all I'm doing is shooting those hips back and moving at the hips, not the waist, okay? So again, stretch here, get that good hamstring stretch, and then pull it back out just like that. Now, for another part of the midsection, okay? What I'm gonna do, what I like to do is take and roll this up, okay? Now I'm up here and I've got my arms straight across, right? So, what we're gonna do is we'll take a deep breath, and then I'm going to exhale and I'm going to turn. All right? The goal is to at least get perpendicular to where I started. Okay? If you can go a little further, that's fine. Go a little further. Make sure you breathe in and exhale out. And see, this is all kind of dynamic movement, dynamic stretch, rather than static stretch where I'm just standing here going and then stretching, all right? So there's a time and a place for that, but dynamic stretching is generally the way to go. All right, now another one I like to do for the hip to create space in there is you can either sit down on a chair or you can kind of lean in like this, and then you do what I call the gentleman's cross sit, okay? Now I'm gonna stick this pole in here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a lever so that way this hip socket starts to come out and create space just a little bit. So all I'm gonna do is push down pressure on that pole. There we go. Now feel that hip and that femoral neck kind of popping out a little bit, creating some space in there. Because what happens with our joints is we don't get enough movement in, or we're sedentary, or we sit around for way too long or too many years, and then the next thing you know, everything's all tight, right? So it's just like when we're working on a vehicle or a car, things will get seized up over time if they don't get used, okay? So then we gotta use things like WD-40 or some type of lubricant. So what we're doing here is when we create that space, your body sends fluid to that joint, kind of like the Tin Man, getting the oil in his joints, right? And then now over time, that space that you've created and that consistency of that fluid getting there to lube up those joints makes them feel a lot better, okay? So now we did the one where we popped the hip out to the side. Now we're gonna come here, okay? And almost like a lunge, except we're gonna press those hips down and forward. And I generally like to have on that same side of that leg's back, that arm up on the pole, so that way now I stretch all of this as well. I press those hips in, down, and forward. And again, dynamic stretching means that I'm kind of easing in and easing out of things, okay? Rather than you never want to snap or move fast, especially when you're warming up or stretching, because we don't want to surprise the body, right? We want to make sure the body knows, hey, here's what's coming up. Because you surprise the body, next thing you know, things snap or you get injured, okay? So we're going to make sure we do that. Other side, again, we're going to press those hips down and forward. Get that good stretch here. So there's a lot more tips and tricks, especially when it comes to mobility, flexibility, range of motion, and things like that, right? A lot of people think, oh, we just go to the gym, we just lift weights, we try to look good, but the main thing is longevity, right? We want health and wellness, okay? Wellness means all around, good joints, good muscle, good cardiovascular, all those things inclusive, okay? So for more tips and tricks, again, make sure you like, share, comment. Come see me again. I'm Bulldog, Bulldog Essential Fitness. I'm out.